curious, how often do you get to sit down with world-class entrepreneurs, high-flying adventurers, expedition leaders, and just pick their brain, glean some sort of mentorship from people who've been there and done that? Well, if you're a Silvercore Club member, that's exactly what you get. Mentorship is one of those things that keeps coming up over and over again. I keep hearing people say, I wish it was easier to find mentorship in hunting. I wish it was easier to find mentorship in business. Or, man, it would be great if I could find a life coach, but I just don't have the money for that. The Silvercore Club is dedicated to providing accessible mentorship. Case in point, today's podcast. If you want to dig a little bit deeper, a little bit more into what makes Malcolm tick, all Silvercore Club members have free access to the Outpost, and that's where we dive a little bit deeper, get a bit more personal, and try and uncover the things that make others tick that we can internally apply to ourselves. If you're already a Silvercore Club member, just log into the silvercore.ca website and you're going to find that you have a unique RSS feed that you can plug into most podcast providers, and you'll automatically be updated through your phone or through your app when any new episode comes out. If you're not a Silvercore Club member, you might want to check it out. Silvercore.ca. Now, let's get on with this episode. I'm joined today by someone who's lived one hell of a life. Paragliding off the Himalayan peaks, building world-class restaurants, filming climate documentaries, and still finds time to cast for Steelhead in northern British Columbia. He's part adventure, part entrepreneur, and all heart. He's lived across continents, built a life that blends adventure with purpose and brings a mindset shaped by risk, resilience, and the drive to create meaningful impact. Welcome to the Silvercore Podcast, Malcolm Wood.
Thanks, Travis. Really happy to be here.
You know, I don't know if you know this, but you were part motivator for me picking up a paraglider. A couple years ago when we were first looking at doing recording, I figured I'll just head over to Chamonix, bring my brand new paraglider with me, do a little paragliding over there. Maybe we can record something live or something in person there. And I was pretty ignorant to everything that I need to know about paragliding. And thankfully, the more I learn, the more I realize I shouldn't be learning off of YouTube. And there's a lot of checks and balances that I need to get under my belt. But I wanted to thank you right off the hop for that inspiration.
Yeah, you're welcome. You're probably discovering that it's quite an intellectual sport, and there's a lot to learn mentally about it before you actually go out and do the sport itself.
Yes, I am. I thought I'd just put the parachute on my back and I could jump off something, not realizing everything that's involved about learning weather patterns and learning thermals and learning all of the ins and outs behind it. So that slowed me down a little bit in my process, but probably for the best. I jumped off a few of the local mountains here and done a little flying around, but at some point, maybe I'll be over there in Chamonix with the big flyers and doing some of that too.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's the reason I ended up living here was because of the aerial sports, and it's got one of the biggest vertical reliefs anywhere in the world, and it's lift accessed as well. So we've got from the Valley Floor, which is 1,000 meters, to the top of Mont Blanc, which is 4,800. It's a lot of vertical airspace.
So I first learned about you through Brian Niska, Skeena Spay Lodge, BC's best spay fishing lodge, in my opinion. Anybody who hasn't been there, who's listening to this, should absolutely check it out. Did a podcast with Brian back in the early days, and we still keep in touch all the time. In fact, I'll be heading up there in about a week to catch up with him and see what's going on with the crew over there. But the stories that I've heard about you, the businesses that you started, you've lived the world over throughout your life, the adventures that you go on, they're pretty exhilarating. And I wouldn't mind just diving into the mindset of you as an entrepreneur who blends all these seemingly diverse interests into something that's cohesive.
Yeah, so like on the face value, it probably looks like I haven't worked out, what I want to be when I grow up. and it looks pretty eclectic, but like in my head it makes sense. There's a deep passion for the nature and the environment. I really enjoyed cooking at a very early age. So a lot, always going out into the wilderness, catching my own food, learning how to cook it, learning about produce. And that just kind of filters into everything I do. If we're making an environmental film about the environment, we're using sports, we're going out into the backcountry, we're documenting, the environment that we love, and it nurtures us, from a food perspective. So that makes sense for the restaurant business. And again with Skeena Spay, putting together a fantastic, wonderful team with Brian up in northern BC. And actually, a funny fact is all of my companies are called Steelhead something. So, if you look at the group, there's like 15 different Steelhead something companies around the world.
How did you get into steelhead fishing?
I mean, through Brian. Like Brian, Brian and me go way back. I think I met him when I was like 17 years old. So we're talking like 26, 27 years ago, in Whistler. Did a bunch of fishing with him. He actually took me to Alaska on a hosted trip. So I joined one of his hosted trips to Alaska West for king salmon, and then he brought me on another hosted trip to Skeena, and then I just fell in love with the river. And he wanted, like he was getting itchy to make a move as well, because he'd been at Whistler fly fishing for so long. And we sitting around a campfire up on the Skeena River one night. And we're like, let's make this happen. So yeah, the rest is history.
Is it true that the whole business plan was written out on a napkin and then bang, away you went? Because that's the urban legend that I've heard.
No, it's there. It's there. And actually the best business plans that we've put together over the years with various different partners have been around a campfire, around a bar table, around a dinner table, and just sketching it out, making a plan, putting some milestones in there. I'm my New Year's resolution, the first thing that I write out, the first line is nothing happens without a plan. Okay. Like I have to remind myself, if you don't plan for it, if you don't think it through, if you don't strategize it, it's not gonna materialize. You're not going to be able to manifest it. So the first thing you need to do, the first step in order to manifest anything you do, is make the plan. And then be very precise about what you want to achieve and when you want to achieve it by. And that's the napkin exercise. So it's like, okay, this date we're going to do this. This date we're going to do this. By this date it's going to be this big, and it's normally fueled by a lot of excitement and a few drinks.
I guess I've heard that most best business plans work that way. And, when I look at my business, started in a very similar fashion. All of the businesses that I've run have very similar, a lot of passion, a lot of energy. And I've always been a firm believer that the best laid out business plan really means nothing, because the second that rubber hits the ground, everything changes. Like they're great for going to a bank. They're great for sort of articulating a design. But the biggest thing that I find of value is just that first step forward. And then, like you say, checkpoints. Like, am I meeting my objectives that I've laid out? Is there any other points in there that, once you've got your business plan kind of sorted out, do you ever come back and look and say, okay, maybe it's time to pull the cord on this one?
Yeah, look, I mean, the biggest part of being an entrepreneur is you don't learn from your successes, you learn from your failures. Yeah. So like every great story I've heard, the person has had some adversity hit him, or a huge loss, or something early on in his career, or even his childhood. Yeah. And that gives you, you've got to turn that into fire to fuel your motivation to moving forward. I'd say, like a lot of people that come to me with business ideas, if you do not have the plan first and the milestones, you can't make it happen. Yeah. And strategy is key to everything. So doing and executing is one thing, but if you don't spend the first 20% of your day or 20% of your business plan on the strategy, the other 80% won't get executed in the correct way or the most efficient way or in a competitive way to other people. So like I'm a big believer in strategy, organization, and milestones as the key framework for being able to manifest any business idea.
It brings to mind a couple of tried sayings. If you fail to plan, you plan to fail. But the other one that you brought up was adversity and difficulties, both personal and business. I think it was E.H. Chapin who said, out of suffering have emerged the strongest souls. The most massive characters are seared with scars. What adversities did you face that you feel have really helped shape who you are now? And how did you overcome them?
I mean, look, there was a bunch of things that kind of made me very independent and outgoing early on as a kid. Like I ended up living away from my family at a very early age. That shaped me a lot. I ended up moving around a lot at a very early age. So like learning to adapt to different cultures, different groups of people, different family members, is a big part of who I am today. I kicked off and tried to start making money when I was 17. Like just straight out that I hated school. I wasn't good at school, highly dyslexic, very bad at learning languages, not making friends and keeping friends because I was moving around every two or 3 years. And then just having to work out how to do it my way. Yeah. And I knew that the education system wasn't for me. I knew that I wasn't going to succeed. I wasn't going to get good grades. And I had to figure out how to break the rule book, essentially. And I tried, I tried 5 or 6 businesses till one stuck, and then that one stuck and we got too cocky and we got too big and we were fully leveraged and we'd raised a shitload of money and 2007 hit, financial recession, Asia went down. We were completely exposed to everything in the marketplace. We lost the business. We lost a huge amount of money. First massive loss, first big failure. Lost my house in the process. Girlfriend left me, like the typical story. And I remember me and my partner sleeping on a sofa, just thinking like, how are we going to rebuild this, and just turning that back into motivation and getting back up and without going through that process of trying 6 times and failing and losing a bunch of money, you don't learn how to protect and grow a business properly because you're not aware of the things that can go wrong. Yeah, there's good success stories of people that haven't gone through adversity, but during the process of building their business, they've had those challenges and they've overcome them. Yeah, it doesn't necessarily mean you need to lose your business to be able to build a successful one. It just means that you have to have learned the lessons and had the right mindset and approach to move it forward.
There's some people out there who are really clever and they can learn from other people's mistakes. That hasn't been my story. I've always had to make my own mistakes to actually truly feel them and learn from them. Someone says a stove is hot. I want to know how hot. Like, what do they mean when they say hot? Like, can I just touch it quickly and get my hand off, or will that be too much? I'm wondering, you talk about growing up with dyslexia, and I see a culture nowadays of people who lean into, they're looking for the adversity in their life. Oh, I'm dyslexic, or I'm ADHD, or I'm whatever. And they use that as an excuse for why they're not achieving or why they're not able to progress on to the next level. But by and large, what I find is people who have these sort of difficulties in early life it it kind of primes them to be okay with failure and to know that failure isn't fatal and it's not success isn't final, failure isn't fatal. They can use that as a means of resilience for later on in life. Is that something that you found?
Yeah, I mean, look, the easiest route is to put yourself as a victim. Yeah, and everyone does it. I've done it, and you know, 1 week everything's going badly, and you're losing deals, and the markets have gone, you know, terribly, and you wake up and you play the victim mindset, and you sit there for 3 days, and you're like, why is this happening? And you you're stuck in your own head, and you've got to pull yourself out. So you got to become your own biggest fan. I think the other thing an entrepreneur needs to be able to do is to rally his self. Self motivation is one of the biggest factors, because you're sitting at the top of your organization. You're changing an industry. You're doing something competitive that no one else is doing. There's not many people that get you, that you can discuss it with, and so that self-motivation has to come from within. The adversity thing, kids learn pretty quick how to figure things out, but and I've got a whole another podcast we can talk about education. My kids are homeschooled. They do a 3-hour learning program. So like we just intense 3 hours, rest of the day, do what you want. And the education system penalizes you for not learning in the way that they want to teach you. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so if you are dyslexic, you end up being set up for failure in that system. So you either end up feeling shit about yourself, becoming a victim, and then for the rest of for your life and your career, you have that mindset, and you never end up breaking away from it. So my biggest advice is you've got to turn those things that differentiate you from other people, even if they're negative, into your superpower. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so I think I'm dyslexic. I don't do language. I don't do written language very well. Now I actually write all of my marketing for my companies, and ended up being able to speak quite well through the process. But I think out of 500 kids, I was the only one that failed English at middle school. In my school, I do extra lessons, and it was humiliating at the time. Jamie Oliver, for example, is now very outspoken about his dyslexia and his language learning skills. But look at him. He went and faced the fear. The second he got out of school, he got a camera, he filmed himself, and he was his personality, the way he spoke, that's what people fell in love with. And now he's a success case. So that mindset of going after what you're fearful of, and this, I know this is coming up. You're gonna probably ask me about why am I doing all of these extreme sports? It's because they scare me.
Yes,
it's terrifying, and it's the mindset of going head into that fear and doing something that's not natural and learning how to overcome it and be successful at it. And it's not chasing the adrenaline; it's overcoming the fear. And being mindful that the fear is there to protect you, So the whole thing is kind of connected.
Yeah, 100%. I think you encapsulated that very, very well. So you've touched on a bunch of points here, and one of them talking about homeschooling, I wholeheartedly agree with. And we homeschooled our kids for a period of time back. I think the biggest thing that a kid can get from going to a regular school would be socialization and possible connections. But those can be also found in sports, and they can be found in different areas. But the actual education, I don't find it's built for my kids. I don't find it was ever built for me. I was diagnosed with ADHD in grade 3. I was put on an experimental dosage of Ritalin from grade 3, and I took myself off before I went into grade 8. It was the highest dose in the province, and the entire time they were trying to fit a square peg into a round hole. and areas where I was very weak at, they figured, okay, that's where we got to double down and we got to figure out how to get you good in these areas that you're weak at. And with my kids, I've taken a little different approach. Okay, you're weak in this one area, but you're really strong over here. Guess where we're doubling down? That area that you're strong in is the area that I just want to, we can figure the other stuff out. We've got calculators, we've got AI. So that I find that interesting from the education standpoint. And then you talk about the fear one. I used to look at it. Fear allows me to be present. And I used to chase fear, not because I'm an adrenaline junkie, but similar to the reasons that you've outlined. I would abseil off our local bridges and overpasses. I would started whitewater rafting as a teenager with a little Canadian Tire raft and got something proper because I wasn't a good swimmer and I almost drowned a couple times. And so I wanted to overcome that. The reason why I bought the paraglider is because I'm afraid of heights and I didn't like that at all. I find those aspects that you bring up rather interesting. Through the process of education and through your extreme sports and the films that you're making, you were named, what was it? UN called you UN Environment called you Mountain Hero of the Year in 2019. What was that about? That was an odd segue, but whatever. What was that about?
Yeah. So look, I got into extreme sports. I kind of made it my thing. And then through that got obsessed with flying, flying everything. Gliders, paragliders, speed wings, mini wings, planes. And what I like about the sport is if you make a mistake, the consequence could result in death. And I've had a few very close calls, and one a couple of years ago where I broke, practically every major bone in my body, pelvis, rib cage, internal bleeding, was on a mountain by myself, needing a heli rescue, just lying there, and people are like, you're an idiot to do that. Yeah. There's one of my favorite sayings in paragliding is you've got to be stupid enough to let your feet leave the ground, but smart enough to let them come back down. And what I like about it is the mental side. It's that it's scary and it needs practice. It needs dedication. It needs time. It needs consistency. It needs an understanding of the environment. You're not just learning to fly. You're learning how the environment reacts, how the sun affects the winds, how winds turn into rotors, how valleys react to different times of the day. And in order to keep yourself alive, you have to have that full understanding. And so they call it mental chess. Yeah. Like it's 3D chess, and you're playing in the environment. And that's why aerial sports is so demanding mentally as well as physically. So, for a long time, just perfecting that and getting obsessed with different ways to do it and overcoming fear. I had a fear of heights as well when I started, and that was one of the initial catalysts for learning how to paraglide. It's like, well, to get over this, what's the most extreme thing I can do? Dangle myself 2,000 meters above the ground, being ripped up in a thermal into the sky, into a cloud, and working out how to survive that. So yeah, that sounds good. Let's go and do that. But there's a lot of similarities between extreme sports and business as well, which we can dive into later. But to answer your question, we ended up doing a bunch of environmental documentaries. So I worked on an environmental documentary called A Plastic Ocean in 2017. It ended up becoming the most awarded environmental documentary of the year. David Attenborough ended up saying it was one of the most significant films of our times. And just quick segue, it was the first documentary to talk about microplastics entering into the human body way before all this news came out, which is why it was a groundbreaking documentary. And that was like the first foyer into the environmental filmmaking. So we ended up I ended up partnering with Craig Leeson, the director, and we decided we wanted to take on climate change. Back then, 50% of Americans thought that the changing climate was a hoax. So we're like, well, this is a great subject matter. Yeah, like it's people are debating this. There's no easy way to solve this. There's no clear visual, route down the scientific path. There's a lot of people. It was like, let's take subject matter of glaciers, because that's pretty easy. If a glacier is melting at a faster rate all around the world, that means the thermometers that are sticking up in the sky are indicating that the climate is warming, and a kid can understand that. So we went and convinced IMAX, who had never done a sustainability documentary. They'd done environmental documentaries about the environment, but not a sustainability documentary, to do their first one with us. And we thought it would be a great idea to use this love of aerial paragliding and extreme sports to demonstrate and film this subject matter so that kids would engage with it, because no one wants to sit through a boring environmental documentary. So we filmed us going around the world, climbing mountains, flying off them, and documenting the science of these mountains. Through that, the UN granted me an ambassador of climate change and the title of Mountain Hero in the year that we launched that documentary. So, and you've got to be an athlete, but it was a combination of the work that I've done in the mountains through extreme sports and the film that we brought, and try to drive awareness with.
I love that. I want to delve a little deeper. You said there's a couple times that you almost died doing these extreme sports. I'd like to delve deeper if you can relay one of those experiences, what the mindset was, what was going on, and maybe then we can segue that about talking about fear in business.
Yeah. So look, I started going into the one where it was a horrific accident. It happened very quickly. I had some gear failure. I was tired. I was alone. I'd solo climbed a mountain in the winter, actually ski toured up with skis to speed ride, which is using skis, very, very small paraglider at very high speeds with one of the most advanced wings. The first mistake I made was I was tired. Then the carabiner was a quick lock carabiner that had caught a piece of my clothing into it. And so when I took off, I was traveling almost 100 kilometers an hour, and I tried to rectify the situation because the wind was blowing into my face, causing my eyes to cry. Quick move, and the glider flipped and accelerated me into the ground. I think I hit the ground at about 17 meters per second.
Whew.
So if you're a skydiver, that's about over a third of terminal velocity.
Wow.
Face down, like almost like a belly flop, straight into ice and rock and snow. But I did this most perfect fall, which when you learn how to paraglide, it's called a PLF or something, where it's like the paragliding landing fall.
Yeah.
And so my ski tips touched, my ski boots shattered, my skis snapped, my legs, my feet broke, my calf muscles severed, my pelvis crushed, and my pelvis got broken. My arm hit my chest, broke my arm, fractured all of the ribs down one side, internal bleeding, and then impacted my face, so that it was streaming with blood. My filming buddy had just passed away, like one of my best friends, from a paragliding accident. I don't know, it's about 6 months prior to that, in the Owens Valley, Sierra Nevada, and very thermic country, like some of the strongest thermals. By 2 in the afternoon, you don't want to be landing in the valley floor because you've got dust devils and stuff. No one really knows what happened, but he had a similar impact where he broke his femur and he ripped his aorta artery. So he bled out within 5 minutes and died. So the first thought that came to my head was, you've got minutes to call someone to let them know. I was by myself. on a Swiss mountain at altitude. It crashed pretty high up the mountain. So first quick reaction was, doesn't matter your situation, get your phone out, make the call. So I placed 3 calls, 3 pin drops, and then I relaxed and assessed the situation. So yeah, that was as bad as they get. Long story short, got rescued. Was a very long 50 minutes waiting for that helicopter to come, and they brought me into the hospital. The doctor assessed the situation once I was stabilized. He was like, "You're not going to walk for 6 months. You're not going to ski for at least a year, and you should give up speed flying." And I just remember the other crazy thing about this story is I had a GoPro 360 camera filming the whole thing on 60 frames per second, and your brain is not supposed to compute the moment you were supposed to die at 50 frames per second. So watching that footage, that's a whole other story on how to give yourself PTSD.
No kidding.
But yeah, and that fucked with my head for a very long time. And so there was a mental challenge of getting over that. But look, I remember saying to myself, this is one of those moments that defines you. Let's do this. And look, I've broken a number of bones in some accidents previously, not flying related. And I know how difficult the physio process is. I know how to manage broken bones. So I asked for soft casts. I asked to keep myself mobile. And I had a mission. The accident happened in January, that I would be skiing and flying again before the end of the ski season.
Wow.
With the doctor saying I wouldn't ski for a year and walk for 6 months. 11 weeks later, skiing and speed riding again.
Wow. You taught NIMS Nirmal Purja how to paraglide, didn't you?
Yeah, so he learned how to paraglide, and the sport that I specialize in is like para-alpinism, which is where you climb mountains and then you try to fly down. And for a very long time, I was obsessed with flying it at very high altitudes with small wings. Still am.
Okay.
Obviously, obviously getting older and kids and things, your direct motivations change. So he looked me up and he was like, yeah, look, I want to learn how to fly small wings on all these 8,000 meter peaks that I'm doing. So we met, we started training together. We formed a good friendship off the back of that. And then we went to the Himalayas and tried to break the speed flying record and try to fly above 8,000 meters together.
And were you guys successful in that?
So we were not. And again, like there's been like these 2 very big moments on Manaslu, which was the mountain we're trying to climb. There was there's called the Manaslu Massacre, where it was a huge amount of snow dumped in a very short period of time. A bunch of climbers tried to climb it, huge avalanches, and killed a bunch of people. And then it was a number of years until, since that happened, when we went on our expedition, and we did a bunch of test flights and we did training. We started understanding, how the wings would react at altitude. We had a good team together. And then we were hit with 15 days of straight snowing. And I have absolutely no shame in being the first person to walk. And if you fly with me and you ask anyone that flies with me, I am the first person to walk off. I'm the safest. All of my friends, I'm doing safety training with them. So actually, with the accident I had, the first thing was a lot of shame. Yeah, like I was full of shame that I had been the one that had the most serious accident, being the safest and always the one that walked off first. It's relevant in Manaslu because I was the first person to walk. I packed my bags and said, this is not safe and we should walk. Next day, because every single team had been trapped for almost over 2 weeks at this stage, 500 people ascended the mountain in one of the most dangerous avalanche conditions, except for NIMS's team. But I had already said, look, there's no way I'm going to climb up there. Yeah, this is too dangerous. It's going to release. Time's running out. This is not the right time to break this record. So I left. Next day, avalanche hit, bunch of people died. A couple of days later, a big avalanche came out and destroyed 500 tents, wiped out every single base camp. And then the whole expedition was over. And I called it 3 days beforehand, not because I have a crystal ball, just because I like to play it safe. So if, you know, I have a buddy I fly with. He's a guy called Mike Moore, and he won the British Open for paragliding. He's got 10,000 hours plus, ex fighter jet pilot, one of my closest friends. He trains other fighter jet pilots how to fly jets around the world for the Australian Army, the Italian Army. One of the best aviators that I know. And he goes, his new rule is 100%, like not 100% safe, but the mindset of, like, if there's a doubt that this is not safe, then you shouldn't do it. Yeah. Obviously the sport is not safe, and I can hear people screaming, but you're doing something that's not safe in general. But what I mean is, when you learn what is safe and not safe within that sport. So paragliding is actually very safe and very simple. Pull the left toggle, you go left. Pull the right toggle, you go right. Fly in the morning, you're not going to get a collapse. You're not going to die. The biggest place you're going to have an accident is landing and takeoff. Yeah. So it's fairly linear. It's when you start pushing it and flying fast and flying long distances and trying to use currents or going to high mountains, and you start mixing all of these different disciplines together, it starts to get very dangerous. So the mindset of just like always breaking down the safety, assessing that first, and if the safety doesn't stack up to what you're prepared, you're like, I'm prepared to deal with this risk. I'm going to do it because it's safe. I've already prepared, and it's within my capability. The second it's over that and outside of what I'm comfortable with, pull the plug, walk away, no shame.
I like that. You know, I've talked to different people about how they assess risk. Some people, engineer background, they've got a spreadsheet that they go through, and it's got to meet all of these different things. I don't ascribe to that as much as, let's say, Jamie Flynn, friend who's been on the podcast before, ex-British Special Forces and world-class wingsuit flyer, skydiver, wingsuiter. And he had a pretty bad accident, and he says, you know, I've now developed what I call the rule of threes. If there's three things that happen, then I'm not going to jump that day. I'm like, well, what do you mean three things? He says, well, you know, if I don't wake up to my alarm, or if the light, I don't make the light, or like really arbitrary little things that are happening. But I think basically what he's tuning into is into his gut feeling, and he can ascribe whatever he wants afterwards to these three different things that pop up. And so he's set a bit of a hard, fast rule. Okay, yeah, there's three things that happened in my gut. It's not feeling right. I'm not jumping. Because the one time that he ignored that, of course, horrific accident, nearly died. He was over in Turkey there and got to experience their medical system firsthand. Would you say that you ascribe more to the gut feeling based on experience, or are you more analytical in your approach, like checking off a spreadsheet?
Look, good gut feeling, good intuition comes from experience. So your brain is automatically doing the spreadsheet for you, and the second your gut feels like you shouldn't be doing this, you probably shouldn't be doing it. Yeah. So that's why first person to walk off the hill, like, is the person who's analyzing the risk the most. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Or so fearful that he's not overcome his risk. So there's that aspect. But like, if you've got a bunch of experienced people that fly in extreme conditions, the first one that walks off is the one that's assessing the risk the best. The one that's still there when there's no one there, still willing to jump, isn't being intellectual about their decision to make that jump or make that flight, make that base jump, whatever it is. And those, unfortunately, are the people that end up killing themselves in the sport, in our sport. Yeah. And so it's not the degree of the risk that you're taking, it's the degree of the risk that you're capable of executing.
How does the extreme sports that you partake in, how does that impact your business? Do you apply lessons you learn there or vice versa?
I think it's not, yeah, it's not one helps the other. There's lessons in business that apply in extreme sports and vice versa. So they both help each other. One of the things that when you run a business at a high intensity level and you're sitting there for hours on end, dedicating yourself, trying to think out the box and doing multiple different things and multitasking, you either burn yourself out or you work out ways in which to release. And I think that's a big part, is the balance of the amount of energy and passion you put into work. And then what I like about extreme sports is when you do a sport like paragliding, you cannot be thinking about work. Like, you can go you can go hit a squash ball or a tennis ball, or go onto the driving range with a golf club, and you can still think a little bit about, oh yeah, I should have said that in this meeting, or what's coming up tomorrow, and your mind isn't 100% focused on what you're doing. In paragliding, like, you are focused, your hands are on the brakes, and when it's spicy out there, there isn't a second for anything else. So it's a form of meditation. It's a form of really taking yourself away, and like, you don't actually feel stress in the sense that you feel stress in the workplace. It's a different type of stress. It's more it's more of like an animal instinct type stress. It's like a survival thing. But in terms of like lessons both ways, like precision, planning, strategy. You wake up in the day, it's like, what's the weather doing? Can I fly? Okay, I can. So I need to arrive there by this time. I need to be laid out, set up. I need to have a strategy. I want to get to this point. Okay, we're going to take this path. Okay, right, the wind's blowing this way. There's going to be rotors on this side of the mountain. The sun's going to move. Okay, east face to west face. Which side of the mountain? Like, it's meticulous planning. And if you fuck that process up, and you're on the wrong side of the mountain, the wrong side of the day, you're in the lee, your paraglide's collapsed, and you're going to hit the ground. That was one of the earliest experiences that I had, was losing my canopy at the highest point I'd thermal to at that time. And it's the intermediate syndrome. It's when you're cocky enough that you think that you've learned everything.
Right.
And so you start pushing yourself in the sport, and then that's when the biggest accidents happen. That's intermediate syndrome. But it wasn't, I was guided at the time. I had an instructor, and we misheard each other on the radio, ended up flying into the rotor, lost the wing, fell like 300 meters in like 2 seconds in a downdraft. Like, with a big canopy to fall that quickly, and the air was really diving, and the canopy reopened about 3 meters above the ground.
Oh, man.
And that was the first big fall. And actually, mentally, that was probably the hardest thing that I had to overcome in all of my sporting career, was that first accident, because that set the framework for how to overcome everything else after that. So it's like, okay, right, and I was really scared. Like, I had ground rush. I thought every bone in my body was going to break. And then I didn't fly for 6 months, and then I wouldn't want a thermal after that, and then every little tweak in the wing like freaked me out, and I was like, you're either going to have to give this sport up because you're so twitchy like doing this, we're going to figure out how to overcome this. So it was like, okay, right, 3 SIVs, thermal count.
Yep.
Let's XC with friends that are really experienced that know the region. Like, boom, boom, boom. We're going to step this up. We're going to come up with a plan. Nothing happens without a plan. Put a plan in place. Ending up overcoming it. And then that kind of set the framework for, every time something similar, or I got close, or, it was the mindset that I was going to do. And look, it's easier in business when you have a failure and pick yourself up and you've crashed your company because your life wasn't at risk. When, real fear comes into your body when you think you're going to lose your life. So it's actually harder in extreme sports to overcome the adversity. So I really respect extreme athletes that have that are pushing their sports and have an accident, but then come back even stronger and harder. Like, I think that's one of the hardest things for people to really overcome.
So you've talked about a framework a few times now and about overcoming the mental challenges. What is your process when you have a catastrophic accident like you did, or you've got that PTSD feeling in your head of something that's just holding you back? What's your process for overcoming those mental challenges?
Yeah. So look, I've touched on a few of the key things, like over the stories that I've illustrated, but like the main driver is like self-motivation. It's being able to pick yourself back up, and then it's putting a structured plan of the steps that you're going to take to reintroduce yourself into that environment again, to learn what went wrong, to simulate the accident. But, so I simulated the accident that I had immediately. Like the first flight I did, I went back up, same wing, still had my blood all over it. Same wing, went out, simulated exactly the thing, but I simulated it with much more height between me and the ground. Recovered it, practiced, repeat. So, with fear, there's the steps to overcoming it, but then there's the repetitive exposure to the situation, and then there's trust in your ability to execute it the next time it happens. And that happens with practice. So you got to put the work in to overcome fear. You can't just go, hey, I'm scared of heights all of a sudden. Like I almost died, like my rock climbing, cut on the rope, and I fell from 5 meters and broke my ankle. I'm never climbing again. Yeah. Like, well, it brought you so much joy. You were climbing with your kids, your family, right? What's the process for overcoming that? And you've got to get yourself comfortable with the situation again. A lot of people just don't want to do the work, and they use that as an excuse. Same thing with business. When a business fails, understanding why it failed, being reactive, like really getting to grips of the situation, and then going, okay, what would I do differently if that same situation happened to me? And am I prepared? And once you're prepared and you know what you would do, it's not a problem anymore.
So what does an average month look like for you? Because from the outside looking in, it looks like you're paragliding off a high altitude mountain. Then you're in the sailboat sailing around the world and negotiating deals with high-end restaurants and chains and starting up new fishing businesses. What's the reality of Malcolm Wood?
I mean, it's actually really boring. It's organizing your time. So my best friend is my calendar. So I have a few rules. One is 30-minute meetings. Try to get your meetings all consolidated into periods of the day. So don't just sit there and go, hey, look, I'm just going to take meetings whenever anyone else can take meetings. Because what will happen is all of your available time will be used up, and you'll have to sit for long periods of time in front of your office. So it's like, okay, every Monday morning, I'm going to do these 10 meetings. They're going to be 30 minutes long. If it's 60 minutes, something's really important or something fucked up. Like there's got to be a reason to go over into 60-minute territory. The other thing is I work 7 days a week, but I take time off during the day. So I will make sure, I'm either exercising in the gym, or I'm going and doing a flight, or I'm going for a quick climb or a quick run, And so I make time available throughout the day. Wednesday afternoons, I like to spend with my kids. Saturday afternoons, I want to spend with my kid. Sunday mornings, I spend with my kids. So those are kid slots. Okay. Right. I want to build some playtime into that. I want to keep practicing my sport. I want to keep myself fit and healthy. So these are my gym periods. Then I just pack as tight and most efficiently as I can every other thing that I'm doing. And for every 10 meetings I set up, 20 to 30% of that has to be So if you do 10 hours of meetings, you have to dedicate 2 to 3 hours to strategy, follow up, and execution. You can't just do meetings. Yeah. And that's the thing that people miss out. So, when I'm sailing, I'm still doing Zoom calls. I'm still doing back-to-back Zoom calls, but I'm on the boat, and we're trying to do a mission or a crossing, and we just make sure we have a really good Starlink. So I'm sitting there doing calls while being knocked around, and it's just been consistent, and if the last 6 months has been really an interest. I've been working in a really interesting company. It's required a lot of time and dedication. So you have to sacrifice the things that you enjoy and focus and hit the timing and the momentum. So it's not always being able to balance your life. It's knowing that, okay, when I find the time, you've got to take it,
So, people talk about work-life balance, and some people say, well, you got to look at the macro. What does that balance look like? Do you ever find yourself repeatedly, like for me, for example, I have a hard time switching gears. If I'm outside and I'm doing something, I want to continue being outside. If I'm working, I have a hard time getting back outside because I'm excited about the work that I'm doing. So likewise, I have to physically schedule things in, like, this is when I stop working and I go outside and I spend time in the bush. And when I'm out in the bush, here's some timings that you're going to have to be back for. Do you find that things go pear-shaped on you in your planning process where all of a sudden you're missing out on all these scheduled items, let's say time with the kids, and you're spending more time at work, or is time with the kids kind of a non-negotiable? Or do you have non-negotiables?
I'm pretty flexible. I think I'm consistently working about 14 hours at least 6 days of the week, and so like my day starts at 5, and I'm still doing emails at 10 p.m. And I'm not saying I'm doing that all the time, but like that's my go-to. So by the time I reach Wednesday, I've done a full week. By the time I reach Saturday, I've done 6 days. I've done 2 weeks of work. So, and when I want to pull back and take an afternoon off and spend it with the kids, and so you can be really efficient with your time. And I don't know. For me, I'm available all the time. My style of working is the human touch. People I work with, they have my WhatsApp. I'm reactive. We can deal with problems. We can talk whenever you want to. But it's just being efficient with your time. Don't waste time. Get up, get to the computer in a certain period of time. When you get to the break time, take the break, go out, walk the dogs, go paragliding. And then look, I'm human. If it's a nice, sunny, thermal day and it looks like it's fantastic flying paraglider, I'm like, see you guys later. I'm taking the day off. Yeah. Because I'm not, like I'm working 7 days a week, but if the opportunity comes up and it's great, I'll do it. And that's why I live here, because I live close to the things that I love doing. So if I want to go for a quick hour hike, I've got 1,000 vertical meters out the back of my house. I can fly my paraglider back to within 400 meters of my house, and I can be working by 9 o'clock when everyone else gets into the office, and I've already done my sport for the day. And so it's just being efficient.
I like that. Is there anything that we haven't talked about that we should be talking about?
Look, the Skeena thing's what brought us together,
Yes.
Brian and this love for the outdoors and nature and cooking, and that's why I'm in restaurants as well, because it's all connected. If you enjoy your environment, so I think I think people listening to the podcast, the business we built up in Skeena is honestly one of my favorite places on the planet, and fishing is one of those things. It's meditation. It's removing yourself. It's getting back into, like, it's just such a special experience. So that for me is one of one of the businesses that's really close to my heart. It's more, I don't even think of it as a business. It's more like we've got a family of people up there. We've got a home we welcome you into, and but it's also really cool. You know, we've got 7 jet boats, and we've got steelhead and king salmon on one of the coolest rivers in the world up there. So if you want to see us in our real environment, that's a great place to come and visit us.
I think family is a perfect way to label it. You and Brian have built a family up there of people who are dedicated and passionate. Everyone who comes up there, diverse backgrounds, fishing, a lot of these outdoor pursuits can be rather egalitarian, and you'll be sitting shoulder to shoulder with your local fishing bum and your high-flying entrepreneur, and you're all talking about the same thing that you're all passionate about. I'm impressed greatly with the operation that you guys have up there. The first time I went up, I was like, I don't know, do I really want to be going up to a place like this? I'm used to fishing out on the river by myself. And the welcoming, the education that I got up there as well, it was just phenomenal. You guys have done a really good job. I did have, and you'll probably laugh at me for this one, but I had a chat with some of the crew up there, and I said, do you know who Eddie Aikau is? Have you heard of Eddie Aikau? He's a surfer so he, very famous surfer, the first lifeguard, Waimea Bay on Oahu. And he would go out in these massive waves. Nobody ever died on his watch when he was a lifeguarding out there. And when other lifeguards would look at it and they say, I don't know, it's too big. It's too dangerous. Everyone would say Eddie would go. He ended up losing his life, I think, around 78, and they were going to boat over to Tahiti, and a boat capsized. He gets out on his surfboard, takes his life jacket off so he can paddle better and go get help. They've got these T-shirts now. It says Eddie would go, based on his spirit. And I tried to convince the crew up at Skeena Spay to get T-shirts made up that says Malcolm Wood, WOULD. I don't know. It's looking a little gnarly out there. Should we go out? Malcolm would, right? I don't know. It's should we do this? Should we dare a little bit further? Malcolm would. That was my thought for T-shirts for you guys at the lodge. I don't know if it'll take off.
There's a new business idea in there.
I love it. Malcolm,
there is one last thing. We just launched The Last Glaciers, available for anyone to watch anywhere in the world. So it is a very cool documentary. We put a lot of time and effort into it. It was filmed over 5 years. Ended up being the most comprehensive documentaries made about global glaciers. We went to Antarctica and Nepal and the Cordillera Blanca range, and we use extreme sports. And look, if you're interested in the outdoors, it's not 100% a climate change film, but if you have kids that you want to educate them on the environment, it's a really great film for kids because they get to engage with the adventure side of things. So that's available on a new platform. It's called All In. It's actually a company that I've been working on. So this is like my new thing.
Cool.
And it's to be able to bring creators that make great films directly to their audience. And if you're interested in my work, that would be a great way to watch us. So the link is available on our website, lastglaciers.com, lastglaciersfilm.com. And you can check out the platform as well, All In, because if you're a creator, it's one of the worst environments today to be able to make money, and it's literally destroying anyone who wants to make anything interesting about the environment, environmental documentaries, feature films. It's a really hard industry to be in today, and so we've got a solution where you can just directly distribute your film to your clients, your audience, your viewers, and engage directly with them, which is super unique and hasn't existed in the marketplace before.
That's really cool. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put links to all of those in the description. So if you're listening, you'll see it in there. Just pull it up. If you're watching on YouTube, of course, you'll see it in the description area. So we'll have links to all of your endeavors that you're doing, everything that we've talked about in here, and just make it easy peasy for people to find. I'll also throw it out in the newsletter too, because that's a useful tool. I'm talking with other people who do documentaries, other filmmakers, and you're right.
Yeah.
It's a difficult market, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, look, we didn't make any money from the 3 films that I've been involved in. So my third film is with James Reed from My Octopus Teacher. So he won the Oscar for Best Director. And then we did a film called The White Mountain, which talks again about climate change in the European Alps, pressure from like tourism and overcrowded mountain places and pollution. But following 2 extreme athletes on the Mont Blanc range, so my home mountain.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the third one. And the motivation was just to drive awareness and do something that my kids would be proud of. But having run successful businesses, my goodness, like the making money in films is a real tough landscape right now. So this idea, all in, is allowing the filmmaker to go direct to his audience, the audience to participate in the success, to share it if they like the content to friends that they think will like it, and they'll also get remunerated. So the remuneration is away from the streamers and the distributors, and it goes to the people in the audience. So the people are in charge of how well the film is viewed, essentially, and that changes distribution in a completely different way to how it's been propagated today.
Yeah, that's kind of revolutionary, actually. I could see that one taking off like wildfire. Hopefully.
Yeah, fingers crossed.
What does the future hold for you, and what would you like others, let's say if your children, what would you like your legacy to look like?
I mean, it's a real tough time right now, isn't it? There's a lot of negative news, and I think, myself included, we've all recently been helping to fuel the negativity that's being spread, and I think we have to remind ourselves of human connection and the human spirit, and focus on a little positive each day. Even if you have a negative mindset, it's really important to remind yourself of the good things that we have, like the positive things, because that's what we're working towards. Yeah. And that's self-motivation. It's sitting there and saying, you know what, like there's a lot of good stuff going on. Just because, there's certain things happening around the world, it doesn't mean that we can't start to spread some love and positivity, especially to the children, because they need it. They've got access to so much data, so many tools, unlike anything when we were kids, and it's tough. It's tough being a kid right now. So that they need our help, and they need us to remain positive as adults and figureheads for them.
Malcolm, thank you so much for being on the Silvercore Podcast. I truly enjoyed this.
Thank you for having me. It's been great.